Welcome back. I am Pemberton, and this is Book 4, Part 4, the close of the book, and the end of the life of Moses. We finished the body of the laws he left his people, and the laws of marriage and the family, of the rebellious son and the runaway slave, of the lost thing returned and the animal in distress, of the kindness owed even to an enemy. Then Moses lifts the whole nation up to a single choice, the blessings that follow obedience and the curses that follow its abandonment, set out before them on 2 mountains. He leaves them a sum to carry his warning down the generations. He lays his hands on Joshua and gives the army into his keeping, and then, an old man of 120 whose eye was not dim nor his strength gone, he climbs a mountain alone in sight of the land he will never enter and is gone. Let us finish Book 4.
Let the Hebrews marry, when they have reached the proper age, virgins who are free and born of good parents. If a man does not marry a virgin, let him not corrupt another man's wife and then marry her, nor grieve her former husband. Let free men not marry slaves, even if their affections strongly incline any of them to do so, for it is decent and worthy of their own dignity to govern those affections. Further, no one ought to marry a harlot, whose marriage offerings, arising from the prostitution of her body, God will not receive. By these means the dispositions of children will be liberal and virtuous, when they are not born from base parents, or from the lustful union of men who marry women who are not free. If any man has been betrothed to a woman as a virgin and afterward does not find her to be so, let him bring his action and accuse her, using whatever signs he has to prove his accusation. Let the father or brother of the young woman, or after them the nearest of her kin, defend her. If the young woman obtains a judgment in her favor, showing that she has not been guilty, let her live with the husband who accused her, and let him have no further power at all to put her away, unless she gives him very great causes for suspicion, such as cannot be contradicted. But if a man brings an accusation and slander against his wife in an impudent and rash manner, let him be punished with 40 stripes save one, and let him pay 50 shekels to her father. If the young woman is convicted of having been corrupted, and she is one of the common people, let her be stoned because she did not preserve her virginity until she was lawfully married. But if she is the daughter of a priest, let her be burned alive. If any man has 2 wives, and he greatly respects and is kind to one of them, whether because of his affection for her, her beauty, or some other reason, while the other is less esteemed by him, and if the son of the beloved wife is younger by birth than another son born from the other wife, yet tries to obtain the right of the firstborn through his father's kindness toward his mother, and by that means to obtain a double portion of his father's substance, for that double portion is what I have allotted him in the laws, let this not be permitted. It is unjust for the one who is elder by birth to be deprived of what is due to him in the father's disposal of his estate, because his mother was not equally regarded by him. If a man has corrupted a young woman betrothed to another man, and she consented, let both him and her be put to death, for they are both equally guilty, the man because he persuaded the woman willingly to submit to a most impure act, and to prefer it to lawful marriage, and the woman because she was persuaded to yield herself to corruption, whether for pleasure or for gain. However, if a man comes upon a woman when she is alone and forces her, where no one was present to come to her aid, let only him be put to death. Let the man who has corrupted a virgin not yet betrothed marry her. But if the father of the young woman is unwilling for her to be his wife, let the man pay 50 shekels as the price of her prostitution. If a man wishes to be divorced from his wife for any cause whatever, and many such causes occur among men, let him give her a written assurance that he will never use her as his wife again. By this means she may be free to marry another husband, although before this bill of divorce is given she is not permitted to do so. But if she is misused by the second husband also, or if after he dies, her first husband wishes to marry her again, it shall not be lawful for her to return to him. If a woman's husband dies and leaves her without children, let his brother marry her, and let him call the son born to him by his brother's name and raise him as heir to his brother's inheritance. This procedure will benefit the public, because families will not fail and the estate will remain among the kindred. It will also comfort wives in their affliction, because they are to be married to the nearest relation of their former husbands. But if the brother will not marry her, let the woman come before the Senate and openly protest that this brother will not receive her as his wife, but will injure the memory of his deceased brother, while she is willing to remain in the family and bear children for him. When the Senate has asked him why he is unwilling to make this marriage, whether he gives a bad reason or a good one, the matter must come to this result: the woman shall loosen the brother's sandals, spit in his face, and say that he deserves this reproachful treatment from her because he has injured the memory of the deceased. Then let him go away from the Senate and bear this reproach upon him all his life, and let her marry whichever of those who seek her in marriage she pleases. If any man takes captive either a virgin or a woman who has been married, and wishes to marry her, let him not be allowed to bring her to bed or live with her as his wife before she has shaved her head, put on her mourning clothes, and lamented her relatives and friends who were slain in the battle. By this means she may give vent to her sorrow for them, and afterward turn to feasting and marriage. It is good for a man who takes a woman in order to have children by her to be considerate of her inclinations, and not merely to pursue his own pleasure without regard for what is agreeable to her. When 30 days have passed as the time of mourning, for that many are sufficient for prudent persons to lament their dearest friends, then let them proceed to the marriage. But if after he has satisfied his lust, he is too proud to keep her as his wife, let him not have power to make her a slave. Let her go wherever she pleases and have the privilege of a free woman. We live together, not for the sake of pleasure, nor to increase our riches by joining both our estates, but so that we might have children to care for us in our old age and might receive from them what we would then need. When you were born, we took you up with gladness, gave God the greatest thanks for you, raised you with great care, and spared nothing that seemed useful for your preservation and for your instruction in what was most excellent. Now, since it is reasonable to forgive the sins of the young, let it be enough that you have given so many signs of contempt for us. Reform yourself and act more wisely from now on. Consider that God is displeased with those who are insolent toward their parents, because he himself is the father of the whole human race, and seems to share in the dishonor that falls on those who bear the same name when they do not receive proper returns from their children. On such people the law inflicts inexorable punishment. May you never experience it. As for young men who despise their parents and do not pay them honor, but insult them either because they are ashamed of them or think themselves wiser than they are, let their parents first admonish them with words, for by nature they have sufficient authority to be their judges. If the insolence of young men is cured in this way, let them escape the reproach their former errors deserved. By this means the lawgiver will appear good and parents happy, because they never see either a son or daughter brought to punishment. But if these words and instructions, given to reclaim the man, prove useless, then the offender makes the laws implacable enemies to the insolence he has shown his parents. Let him therefore be brought out of the city by those very parents, with a multitude following him, and there let him be stoned. When he has remained there for 1 whole day so that all the people may see him, let him be buried at night. This is how we bury all whom the laws condemn to die for any cause whatever. Let our enemies who fall in battle also be buried, and let no dead body lie above the ground or suffer punishment beyond what justice requires. Let no one lend to any of the Hebrews at interest, whether interest on what is eaten or on what is drunk. It is not just to make profit from the misfortunes of one of your own countrymen. When you have helped his necessities, consider your gain if you obtain his gratitude, together with the reward that will come to you from God for your humanity toward him. Those who have borrowed silver, or any kind of fruits, whether dry or wet, when the Jewish affairs shall by God's blessing be as they desire, let the borrowers bring them back and restore them gladly to those who lent them, laying them up, as it were, in their own treasuries and justly expecting to receive them from there if they need them again. But if they are shameless, and do not restore it, let not the lender go to the borrower's house, and take a pledge himself before judgment is given concerning it. Let him require the pledge, and let the debtor bring it himself without the least opposition to the man who comes upon him under the protection of the law. If the one who gave the pledge is rich, let the creditor keep it until what he lent is repaid. But if he is poor, let the one who takes it return it before the sun goes down, especially if the pledge is a garment, so that the debtor may have it as a covering in his sleep, since God himself naturally shows mercy to the poor. It is also not lawful to take a millstone, or any utensil belonging to it, as a pledge, so that the debtor may not be deprived of the tools by which people get their food, and so that they may not be ruined by their need. Let death be the punishment for stealing a man. But the person who has stolen gold or silver must pay double. If anyone kills a man who is stealing something out of his house, let him be considered guiltless, even if the man was only breaking in through the wall. Let the one who has stolen cattle pay 4 times what was lost, except in the case of an ox, for which the thief must pay 5 times. Let the person who is so poor that he cannot pay the fine laid upon him become the servant of the one to whom he was judged to owe it. If anyone is sold to one of his own nation, let him serve him 6 years, and in the 7th year let him go free. But if he is a son by a woman's servant in his purchaser's house, and if because of goodwill toward his master and natural affection for his wife and children he wishes to remain his servant, let him be set free only when the year of Jubilee comes, which is the 50th year. Then let him take away his children and wife with him, and let them also be free. If anyone finds gold or silver on the road, let him inquire after the person who lost it, make public proclamation of the place where he found it, and then restore it to him. He should not think it right to profit from another person's loss. The same rule is to be observed with cattle found wandering away in a lonely place. If the owner is not found at once, let the finder keep it with himself and appeal to God that he has not stolen what belongs to another. It is not lawful to pass by any beast in distress when in a storm it has fallen down in the mire. Instead, one must try to preserve it, having sympathy with it in its pain. It is also a duty to show the roads to those who do not know them, and not to treat it as sport when we hinder others' advantages by setting them on the wrong way. In the same manner, let no one revile a person who is blind or dumb. If men fight together and no instrument of iron is involved, let the one who is struck be avenged immediately by inflicting the same punishment on the one who struck him. But if after he is carried home, he lies sick for many days and then dies, let the one who struck him not escape punishment. If the one who was struck escapes death, but has great expense for his cure, the striker must pay everything spent during the time of his sickness and everything he has paid the physician. If a man kicks a pregnant woman so that she miscarries, let him pay a fine in money as the judges determine, because he has diminished the multitude by destroying what was in her womb. Let money also be given to the woman's husband by the man who kicked her. But if she dies from the blow, let him also be put to death, for the law judges it equitable that life should go for life. Let no Israelite keep any poison that may cause death or any other harm. If he is caught with it, let him be put to death and suffer the very same mischief that he would have brought upon those for whom the poison was prepared. The person who maims another must undergo the same himself, and be deprived of the same member of which he deprived the other, unless the maimed person is willing to accept money instead. The law makes the sufferer the judge of the value of what he has suffered, and permits him to estimate it, unless he chooses to be more severe. Let the owner of an ox that pushes with its horn kill it. But if it pushes and gores someone on the threshing floor, let it be put to death by stoning, and not be considered fit for food. If its owner is convicted of having known its nature and not kept it confined, let him also be put to death, as the cause of the ox's killing a man. But if the ox has killed a man, servant or maid, servant, let it be stoned, and let the owner of the ox pay 30 shekels to the master of the one who was slain. If an ox is struck and killed by another ox, let both oxen, the one that struck the other and the one that was killed, be sold, and let their owners divide the price between them. Let those who dig a well or pit be careful to lay planks over it, and keep it shut up, not to keep people from drawing water, but so that there may be no danger of falling into it. If anyone's beast falls into such a well or pit that has been dug and not shut up, and dies, let the owner of the pit pay its price to the owner of the beast. Let there be a battlement around the tops of your houses instead of a wall, so that people may be prevented from rolling down and dying. Let the person who has received anything in trust for another take care to keep it as something sacred and divine. Let no one invent any device to deprive the person who entrusted it to him of the same, whether that person is a man or a woman, even if he or she might gain an immense amount of gold and could not be convicted of it by anyone. A person's own conscience, which knows what he has, should in all cases compel him to do well. Let this conscience be his witness, and make him always act in a way that may win commendation from others. But let him chiefly regard God, from whom no wicked person can lie hidden. If the one with whom the trust was placed loses what was entrusted to him without any deceit of his own, let him come before the 7 judges and swear by God that nothing has been lost willingly or with a wicked intention, and that he has not used any part of it. Then let him depart without blame. But if he has used even the smallest part of what was committed to him, and it is lost, let him be condemned to repay everything he had received. The same rule that applies to these trusts is to apply if anyone defrauds those who perform bodily labor for him. Always remember that we are not to defraud a poor man of his wages, understanding that God has allotted these wages to him instead of land and other possessions. This payment is not to be delayed at all, but must be made that very day, since God is not willing to deprive the laborer of the immediate use of what he has labored for. You are not to punish children for the faults of their parents. Rather, because of their own virtue, grant them compassion because they were born of wicked parents, instead of hatred because they were born of bad ones. Nor should we impute the sin of children to their fathers, since young people indulge themselves in many practices different from what they have been instructed in, through their proud refusal of such instruction. Let those who have made themselves eunuchs be held in detestation. Avoid any conversation with those who have deprived themselves of their manhood, and of that fruit of generation which God has given to men for the increase of their kind. Let such people be driven away as though they had killed their children, since they have destroyed beforehand what should have produced them. It is evident that while their soul has become effeminate, they have also transferred that effeminacy to their body. In the same way, treat everything that appears monstrous when it is seen. It is not lawful to geld men or any other animals. Let this be the constitution of your political laws in time of peace, and may God be so merciful as to preserve this excellent settlement free from disturbance. May the time never come that will innovate anything and change it into the contrary. But since it must necessarily happen that mankind fall into troubles and dangers, either unintentionally or intentionally, let us make a few constitutions concerning them. In this way, being warned beforehand of what ought to be done, you may have wholesome counsels ready when you need them, and may not then be forced to search for what must be done unprepared, and fall into dangerous circumstances. May you be a laborious people, exercising your souls in virtuous actions, and by that means possess and inherit the land without wars. May no foreigners make war on it and afflict you, and may no internal sedition seize it, by which you might do things contrary to your fathers, and so lose the laws they established. May you continue observing the laws that God has approved and delivered to you. Let every kind of warlike operation, whether it happens to you now in your own time or later in the times of your posterity, be carried on outside your own borders. When you are about to go to war, send embassies and heralds to those who are your willing enemies, for it is right to use words with them before you come to weapons of war. Assure them that although you have a numerous army, with horses and weapons, and above these a God who is merciful to you and ready to assist you, you nevertheless desire them not to compel you to fight against them, nor to compel you to take from them what they have, which would indeed be gain for us, but which they will have no reason to wish we should take for ourselves. If they listen to you, it will be proper for you to keep peace with them. But if they trust in their own strength as superior to yours, and will not do you justice, lead your army against them, using God as your supreme commander, but appointing under him as lieutenant one man who has the greatest courage among you. Different commanders are both an obstacle to actions that must be done suddenly and a disadvantage to those who use them. Lead an army that is pure, and made up of chosen men, all those who have extraordinary strength of body and firmness of soul. Send away the timid part, lest they run away in battle, and so give your enemies an advantage. Also allow those who have lately built houses, and have not yet lived in them for a year, and those who have planted vineyards, and have not yet partaken of their fruits, to remain in their own country. Do the same for those who have betrothed or lately married wives, lest they have such affection for these things that they are too sparing of their lives, and by preserving themselves for these enjoyments become willing cowards because of their wives. When you have pitched your camp, take care that you do nothing cruel. When you are engaged in a siege and need timber for making engines of war, do not strip the land bare by cutting down fruit-bearing trees. Spare them, considering that they were made for the benefit of men. If they could speak, they would have a just complaint against you, because they are not the causes of the war, yet they are treated unjustly and suffer in it, and would move themselves into another land if they were able. When you have defeated your enemies in battle, kill those who fought against you, but preserve the others alive, so that they may pay you tribute, except for the nation of the Canaanites. That people you must entirely destroy. Take special care in your battles that no woman use the dress of a man, and no man the garment of a woman. This was the form of political government left to us by Moses. Moreover, he had already delivered laws in writing in the 40th year after they came out of Egypt, about which we will speak in another book. But now, on the following days, for he called them to assemble continually, he delivered blessings to them, and curses upon those who would not live according to the laws but would transgress the duties appointed for them to observe. After this he read to them a poetic song composed in hexameter verse, and left it to them in the holy book. It contained a prediction of what was to happen afterward. In agreement with it, all things have happened all along and still happen to us, and in it he has not departed from the truth at all. Accordingly, he delivered these books to the priest, together with the ark, into which he also put the 10 Commandments written on 2 tablets. He also delivered the tabernacle to them. Moses exhorted the people that when they had conquered the land, and were settled in it, they should not forget the injuries done by the Amalekites, but should make war on them and punish them for the mischief they had done when the Hebrews were in the wilderness. He also commanded that when they had taken possession of the land of the Canaanites, and had destroyed the whole multitude of its inhabitants as they ought to do, they should erect an altar facing the rising sun, not far from the city of Shechem, between the 2 mountains, Gerizim on the right hand and Ebal on the left. The army was to be divided so that 6 tribes stood on each of the 2 mountains, with the Levites and the priests among them. First, those on Mount Gerizim were to pray for the best blessings upon those who were diligent about the worship of God and the observance of his laws, and who did not reject what Moses had said to them, while the others also wished them every kind of happiness. When these latter offered the same prayers, the former praised them. After this, curses were to be pronounced upon those who transgressed those laws, the 2 sides answering one another alternately to confirm what had been said. Moses also wrote down their blessings and their curses, so that they might learn them so thoroughly that length of time would never make them forgotten. When he was ready to die, he wrote these blessings and curses upon the altar, on each side of it. There also, he says, the people stood, and then sacrificed and offered burnt offerings, though after that day they never offered any other sacrifice upon it, for it was not lawful to do so. These are the constitutions of Moses, and the Hebrew nation still lives according to them. On the next day Moses called the people together, with the women and children, so that even the slaves were present, that they might bind themselves by oath to observe these laws. He wanted them, after duly considering God's meaning in them, not to think anything should be preferred to these laws, whether from favor toward their kindred, fear of anyone, or any other motive, and so transgress them. If anyone of their own blood, or any city, should attempt to confuse or dissolve their constitution of government, they were to take vengeance on them, altogether and each person individually. When they had conquered them, they were to overturn their city to its very foundations, and if possible, not leave the least trace of such madness. But if they were not able to take such vengeance, they were still to show that what had been done was contrary to their wills. So the multitude bound themselves by oath to do this. Moses also taught them how their sacrifices might be most acceptable to God, and how they should go out to war, using the stones and the high priest's breastplate for direction, as I have already indicated. Joshua also prophesied while Moses was present. When Moses had recounted everything he had done for the preservation of the people, both in war and in peace, and had composed for them a body of laws and obtained for them an excellent form of government, he foretold, as God had declared to him, that if they transgressed the institution established for the worship of God, they would experience these miseries. Their land would be filled with weapons of war from their enemies. Their cities would be overthrown, their temple would be burned, and they would be sold as slaves to men who would have no pity on them in their afflictions. Then they would repent, when that repentance would in no way profit them under their sufferings. Yet that God who founded your nation will restore your cities to your citizens, and your temple also. You shall lose these advantages not only once, but often. Since I am going to my forefathers, and God has determined that this shall be the day of my departure to them, I return thanks to him, while I am still alive and present with you, for the providence he has exercised over you. He has not only delivered us from the miseries we lay under, but has bestowed on us a state of prosperity. He has also assisted me in the pains I took and in all the plans I carried in my care for you, in order to better your condition, and has on all occasions shown himself favorable to us. Or rather, it was he who first directed our affairs and brought them to a happy conclusion, using me as a deputy general under him, and as a minister in those matters in which he was willing to do you good. On this account I think it proper to bless the divine power which will take care of you in the time to come. I do this to repay the debt I owe him, and to leave behind me a memorial that we are obliged to worship and honor him, and to keep those laws which are the most excellent gift of all those he has already bestowed on us, or which, if he continues favorable to us, he will bestow on us hereafter. Certainly a human legislator is a terrible enemy when his laws are insulted and made useless. May you never experience the displeasure of God which will follow from neglecting these laws of his which he, your Creator, has given you. When Moses had encouraged Joshua to lead the army against the Canaanites by telling him that God would assist him in all his undertakings, and had blessed the whole multitude, he spoke these words. At the end of his life, after he had foretold what would afterward befall each of their tribes, and had added a blessing to them, the multitude fell into tears. Even the women, beating their breasts, made clear the deep concern they felt when he was about to die. Children lamented still more, unable to contain their grief, and by this showed that even at their age they understood his virtue and mighty deeds. There truly seemed to be a contest between the young and the old over who would grieve for him most. The old grieved because they knew what a careful protector they were about to lose, and so they lamented their future condition. The young grieved not only for that reason, but also because it happened that they were to be left by him before they had fully tasted his virtue. One may judge the excess of the multitude's sorrow and lamentation from what happened to the legislator himself. Although he was always persuaded that he ought not to be cast down at the approach of death, since undergoing it was according to the will of God and the law of nature, yet what the people did so overcame him that he himself wept. As Moses went from there to the place where he was to vanish from their sight, they all followed after him weeping. But Moses beckoned with his hand to those who were far from him and told them to stay behind quietly, while he urged those who were near him not to make his departure so lamentable. They thought they ought to grant him that favor and let him depart as he himself desired, so they restrained themselves, though still weeping toward one another. Those who accompanied him were the Senate, Eleazar the high priest, and Joshua their commander. As soon as they came to the mountain called Abarim, a very high mountain opposite Jericho that gives those upon it a view of the greatest part of the excellent land of Canaan, Moses dismissed the Senate. As he was going to embrace Eleazar and Joshua, and was still speaking with them, a cloud suddenly stood over him, and he disappeared in a certain valley. Yet he wrote in the holy books that he died, out of fear that people might dare to say that because of his extraordinary virtue he went to God. Moses lived 120 years in all. For a third part of that time, lacking 1 month, he ruled the people. He died in the last month of the year, called Distris by the Macedonians and Adar by us, on the first day of the month. He exceeded all men who ever lived in understanding, and he made the best use of what that understanding suggested to him. He had a very graceful way of speaking and addressing the multitude. As for his other qualities, he had such complete command of his passions that it was as if he scarcely had any in his soul, and knew them only by name, perceiving them rather in other men than in himself. He was also a general of an army such as is seldom seen, and a prophet such as was never known, to such a degree that whatever he pronounced, you would think you heard the voice of God himself. So the people mourned for him 30 days. No grief ever affected the Hebrews so deeply as this grief at the death of Moses. Nor were those who had experienced his leadership the only people who longed for him. Those also who studied the laws he left behind had a strong desire for him, and from those laws they gathered the extraordinary virtue he possessed. This is enough to declare the manner of the death of Moses.
And their book 4 ends, and with it the life of Moses lawgiver, leader, and prophet vanished on the mountain of Abarim, while the nation he made wept for him 30 days on the plains of Moab. He brought them out of Egypt, bore with them through 40 years of desert and rebellion, and handed them a law and a leader to carry across a river he himself was forbidden to cross. That crossing, and the conquest of the promised land under Joshua, is where Book 5 begins. Thank you for sitting with the whole of Book 4, from the rebellion of Korah to the grave that no man knows. Mind the footnotes, and beware the folly.